I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the willGather podcast. What do we do after a loved one passes away? So many families find that they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, they feel unprepared and not informed about what really happens after our loved one passes away. And there are very few resources until now available for us that walks us through how to navigate the loss of a loved one. Today, my guest is Ron Gura. He is the CEO and co-founder of Empathy. It is an app that has a mission. They are mission and purpose driven to help families deal with loss, incorporating the emotional and the logistical support for families when they need it most. Empathy has been awarded the Best App for Good by Google Play. They are one of the top digital health companies of 2021. They were also voted one of Fast Company's most innovative companies of 2022. The Empathy app simplifies and streamlines all of the end-of-life bureaucracy with a personalized checklist and support. Today, we are highlighting this conversation to destigmatize death and loss. We all process our loss and grief in different ways, but now we get to do it with support through this uncharted territory. We are talking about the impact that bereavement has on families, all of those many hours and burdens that it places on families and the toll that it can take, how empathy can support us, understanding the scope and all that we need to navigate and figure out and think through. Ron shares why the Empathy app was created, the many decisions that need to be made, how insurance companies are elevating their benefits and supporting people, the dedicated care team of specialists that Empathy provides, the research that they've done to bring this to market, and the bigger conversation around death and loss in our society. And as Empathy says, families can finally focus on healing through grief with their support. Here is my interview with Ron Gura. Hi, Ron. Thank you for taking the time today to meet with me. I'm so happy that you are here. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I love hearing how we come to create things. I think you and I both show up with curiosity and we want to ask the questions about why, how we can make change. What prompted you to take a normal private moment between families and kind of break the barrier and reach in, provide support that is accessible?
You're right. It is a very intimate moment usually. And we're talking today about bereavement and winding down the affairs of a loved one. Something, well, loss, something that doesn't skip any of us.
Yeah.
And what we do is we're at Empathy, we're removing the taboo on death while providing information to help families, navigate the logistics of losing a loved one. And what inspired me to do so is, first off, loss doesn't skip anyone. It sure didn't skip me either. I'm a bereaved brother and had more than what I think is my fair share of loss throughout the years. But it was later in my career when I realized I have the consumer internet background and access to talent and access to capital to really do something more purposeful with the rest of my career. And I'm very humbled to put together a really interesting group of people that came to solve what is perhaps the single largest consumer sector that is still untouched by innovation and unspoiled by software altogether.
I agree, as I've been, I would say recently have had loss in our family as well, or with different friends. And it was the first time that I felt like I could offer them this little bit of hope. I was able to share the app with them and feel like I could contribute in some way, even though I wasn't involved in the detailed planning. And really, before Empathy, when I think about it, I've been in the senior living industry for many years, and there's no outline or script on how we walk through loss. And a lot of times we go that road alone, families go that road alone, and without guidance and without understanding all of the intricacies that take place. There's the importance of bringing that conversation to light and creating that open discussion. When you experience loss, more often than not, we haven't done it before, and so we don't know what to do. Can you tell us about, for families, walk us through like what happens after people experience that loss of a loved one?
Well, for some families, bereavement brings them closer together.
Mm-hmm.
And for other, it causes the exact opposite. People are grieving and they may not agree on some key decisions that are taken, or may just step on each other's toes. But if you want to summarize the family angle and how it feels for most people to get the news, that we're so trying so hard our entire life to not to think about that moment, and that aversion is really the strongest part. It's that chemistry of us trying to not even contemplate life decisions and not even try at all to think about mortality. And we try so hard not to. So in one word, people probably feel overwhelmed. It's just a lot to take in. In our approach, we think that grief is made hard by logistics, and logistics are made harder by grief. That's why we don't decouple the two, and we build a platform that is more holistic in its approach. When you zoom in on numbers, we're talking about more than 13 months median of work, like full blown work. This is, we often talk about the caregivers being the unfortunately, least appreciated job in the US right now. But what people don't fully appreciate is that caring doesn't stop and giving doesn't stop either. When you transition from this non-sexy title of being a caregiver to an even less sexy title of being an executor or beneficiary or next of kin. And that takes more than 420 hours of work over more than a year. We're talking about losing important time at work, mental cost, almost $13 on average, $13,000, of course, that we spend as families on this situation. So there's a lot there. We just published a whole research about it. For those of you who want to learn more about the employer cost, the emotional cost, financial cost, and all the implications that come with the true dimensions of loss and how we can impact that as individuals and as a society, then you can go on empathy.com and /cost of dying, and you'll see our report in partnership with Goldman Sachs that is measuring all of those true dimensions.
That's an important distinction between the caregiver and then what happens after. And I think we initially, come alongside families and show our support at that initial time of loss. And then we forget, or it's easier, it's uncomfortable to have to then walk through those other things. And so the idea of having that support follow you for the length of time that you are managing all of those affairs and navigating all of that loss. There's also, I feel like, a really big toll on the mental health that happens as well. Can you share more about that, and what are you seeing? What is the most stressful? I think of, it's like that analysis paralysis where you just don't know what to do next. It's like such a heavy load.
It's a very challenging moment, perhaps one of life's most challenging moments, and it obviously has impact on mental health as well, especially now, especially after a year full of loss. And we're looking at a very heavy toll on mental health. 57% of our users report that they suffered from mental or physical health symptoms, and 17.5% experienced panic attacks during the first few months after losing a loved one. This is really essence of this being taboo.
Yeah.
People don't talk about those. Mental health is already out of the closet. getting support for employers and, health insurance carriers. But grief support specifically is not, and not just the emotional aspect of it, the whole thing is not something you overshare. It's not something you work on with others. These are the places that people keep to themselves and create this, long list of terrible etiquette that people still do. Like, oh, it's been a year. You should be over that. Or at least you had X amount of years with him. Like terrible things that people don't really mean to say, but really the essence of shifting from sympathy to empathy, from words and condolences and acknowledging the fact that you are in pain, to shifting to something more meaningful and taking action, saying, I'm here for you. If you need anything, can I take this off your plate? Can I order anything for you? Do you want to hang out? Can I just sit here for a while? And anything that is really putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah, there's that whole idea too of holding space for people to do that and to grieve in the ways that they need to, or just feel heard. And it's almost like empathy is that like virtual space holding that is offering all of those tools and a place to, even there's that grief journal component where you can just share your thoughts and get it out there. And I appreciate empathy also bringing the conversation to light in a bigger way and involving the community, because it really is a community-wide aspect of life that we're all dealing with, and starting the conversation on a bigger level, which is so great to be able to do that.
I feel it's much needed, and thank you for that. We believe the time-saving tools and the guidance could be a huge help, but it's actually the human care that is in the center of everything we're doing. And those amazing, phenomenal social workers, the care managers on our team that are supercharged by technology.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is at the heart of our desire to meet you where you are.
Yeah, and they're available 24/7, which when I learned that, I mean, grief doesn't like have a timeline or a time, right? We don't like stop grieving at 5. So that's
Actually the
benefit,
opposite.
right?
I'll share with you some internal stats that 62% of our just chats and call-ins are after 9 p.m. People are actually texting us from their pillows most days.
Yeah.
And this is when they're most vulnerable, when they finished hiding their feelings at 9 to 5 at their desk, when they had to mingle between choosing to be a good parent, a good executor, or a good employee, when they finished their work and went to probate court or to an IT shop to hack into their mother's computer for photos, or just not having the passwords for anything, and dealing with very straightforward customer support from dozens of vendors. And it's actually 9 p.m. when your body's tired, but your mind is tired as well. Yeah. This is really when you need someone to talk to, and that someone ideally should be proficient specifically with grief needs.
And that's when we are alone with our thoughts too, right? Later at night, we are racing through our minds and need that support at that time.
Sleep support is something we recently added as well. We've seen a lot of people ask about it, wanting us literally to talk to them about their loved ones at those very late hours. And we added not just audio chapters and digital resources for sleep support, but also different measurements and tools to help people understand and give themselves time to re-engage with life and understand that sleep is a part of that.
That is a great addition. There's so much that is involved in that emotional side of loss, but I also hear from families just the immense financial impact it can have and burden and toll. And we initially think of, right, the funeral expenses, but there are so many other factors. What are some of those other high costs that we don't really take into consideration that are going to come along with that? And what are those different professionals that families go and have to like hire and look into?
Well, there's a long list. Of course, the immediate arrangements include the lion's share of the cost in terms of the ceremony if it's a funeral, a burial, a cremation, but then hiring professionals, of course, buying a casket or depends on the situation, paying for an obituary, moving the house, selling the house, accountants, lawyers, probate. There's really an endless list of vendors that you'll find out along the way when you think you're done with the gist of it. There's more work and more work. We just went through tax season. People do their own, TurboTax moment hard enough in the US to have that self-administered process. And then you understand, well, I need to close my loved one's taxes. And then for after they pass, the estate as an entity, I need to open an EIN. Like I need to go to Social Security. I need to do all these things. So there's a very long list of vendors and professionals that you need to talk to. And this is why we don't think you can decouple the two. Because when you call, let's say the simplest thing, I need to call Amazon to remove my spouse's name from the account, or whatever that the case might be. That is an emotional topic. It's not administrative. I don't want to delete he or she. I don't want to certify the death certificate. I don't want to go to the funeral. I don't want to shut down Verizon. I don't want to do any of these things. So it could be a small administrative task like calling Comcast, but it could be a massive unknown, like what the hell is probate? Nobody in the US knows what probate is until they go through probate. And 50% of Americans end up at probate court. So it's a very broad range of needs, and we don't think you can decouple any administrative task from the emotional burdens that come with it, and vice versa.
That's so true. And we don't know how grief will hit us in that moment also when we're doing what we think of as like a small task that could really all of a sudden hit us to where it sets in, or it makes it more real, or whatever we're doing. And I like that there's that combination of the two, because you can't separate it. You can't remove it.
You can't separate it, and you can anticipate it. You can walk down the street, someone's going to, call his child's name, his pet name, and you're going to remember something or someone, and we can't anticipate all of it. That's why at the essence of what we do in product design and around empathy is not to tell you what's the right persona or perspective and anticipate anything you might need. We actually anticipate and welcome the uncertainty. And that's why we say, we're just going to be there for you when that happens. So we're always there in your pocket. You can always talk to us. And if things are in control, you can re-engage with life using those resources and tools, using technology like you do in every other aspect of your life. But if you want to talk to someone right now, just always there with you.
I loved the organization of it, is how it kind of broke it down in what I thought was those two categories of a checklist, which is we are used to those in the sense of we know we can cross things off the list, and you walk people through what are those various things that they need to consider. And right in the beginning is which ones do we need to immediately address, or those immediate arrangements, which takes another level of that mental energy off our plate. Are there different providers such as insurance companies? Are they getting on board with offering those benefits to support those bereaved families? I just think it would be such a great asset to be able to offer your employees on when they're going through those situations.
Well, we're very excited to see a movement, not just in the community, but also in the ecosystem of enterprise companies. And that is happening right now, primarily with two key verticals. One of them is employers, and they're showing up with bereavement care experience, teaming up with empathy and changing their internal policies to basically recognize the very basic and simple truth that our lives are defined by these key moments, sometimes expected, sometimes unexpected. And those celebrations and happy moments and joy, and also the challenges and surprises. And employers are showing up, being there for employees for their life's biggest moments, very similar to what happened a decade ago with maternity leave and parental leave. Huge change over one decade. And now the understanding of this is actually very similar. This is an intimate life transition happening in my private house, and my boss, my employer, is committing to that long-term relationship we talked about, and he's showing up, he or she is showing up for me as a manager and as in a people organization or as an employer, and saying, we understand that you can't bring your whole self back to work tomorrow. We get it. So we want to save you time. We want to save you money. We want to save you headaches. So when you are ready to come back to work, you can actually show up and not just be there, right, and have presenteeism or absenteeism. So employers are a big part of that change. We're very lucky to partner with some really amazing, progressive, early stage companies all the way to Fortune 100 giants that are now showing up for their employees. And life insurance is the second one, where by definition, if you're calling a life insurance company as a beneficiary, you have this neutral negative experience of a claim. And the essence of a claim when it comes to life insurance versus, any other type of insurance is that you just lost a loved one. It's very, very, very likely that the policyholder is someone that was very close to you. If you're the beneficiary, it's actually unlikely he or she are not close to you. And as a result, every beneficiary is actually a bereaved person. And this is a great opportunity to go way beyond the payout. If you take, for example, one of our first early adopters in this space, New York Life, America's largest mutual or life insurance. The way they're supporting their beneficiaries now, showing up in the days, weeks, and months after the payout, is really setting a new standard for the whole industry. And we see so many others are following. And we know those values create value. And at the end of the day, it's impacting their business. It's not just the right thing to do. Yeah. It's actually a great addition to their business.
Yeah. That care of who they're providing support for, it just elevates that. And I encourage everyone to read the Cost of Dying report. I read through it and was astonished about how just the work life was affected for people, the amount of hours of lost time and the productivity. There is just looking at those internal practices. And I don't know about Tel Aviv, but in the US, I think the average days off after major loss of a loved one is only 3 days. That does not even begin to accommodate what is happening at that time.
Yeah, I know. I can't even imagine coming back to work. And unfortunately, especially for the people who need the most help, that don't have that additional layer of support, like an estate lawyer, an accountant, a family office, and most Americans don't have a will, a guardianship document, a trust, saving account. So for them, this is an out-of-pocket, immediate expense, and they need more help than anyone else. So not having that cushion of additional support is tricky. But even going beyond time and pay for employers and showing up with that employee experience is what we're seeing right now as the trend and the much needed level of support.
Are you finding that could empathy be used also proactively for, let's say there's an older adult and they want to make sure that their affairs are in order, so to speak? Could they utilize it in that way as, okay, I'm going to go through this and make sure I've got this covered or this thought of or taken care of?
We do have estate planning and pre-need level of support for the individual, not just for the next of kin. However, the vast majority of Americans are not in the state of mind to always do that. We're talking about more than 80% that are not doing sufficient planning. And as a result, what we're trying to do is meet them where they are when the inescapable happens, minimize the toll that this will have on their families and their wallets and their headaches. And then help them understand that planning ahead for additional support and family legacy is something that would help them save time and focus on the things that matter the most.
Yeah.
The next time, spending more time with their loved ones and spending more time healing and less time dealing with all the paperwork.
Right, right. We talked about that checklist component, and then there's that tools and automation component. And they said that one of the prize tools was helping families with that obituary, and then closing of those accounts and being able to have a care specialist actually make those phone calls and manage some of those just purely logistical things that we have to do, which I thought was such a great benefit for that.
It's also a great example for that duality we talked about
Yeah.
before, because let's say you have 2 days to spare and you want to call 52 vendors on average and tell them the exact same thing and fax and email and whatnot. That's going to have an emotional toll. You'll need to say 52 times,
Right.
I lost my father. No, I told you I do not have the passport. No, he's not here. Like, you don't want to do that 52 times. So let us do that. It's really how we use technology to streamline most of it. And for the very few cases that we can't, then we'll just do the labor for you. We just want to make sure you don't need to go through it.
Yeah. Along with those care specialists that can make all of those calls, you guys have a great asset in other professionals that provide support as well. Can you elaborate on some of those other professionals that are on the site? I know you mentioned the social workers. Is it chaplaincy that's involved?
We have a phenomenal team of care managers, and then behind them, they are supported with funeral directors and obituary writers and social workers. We got bereavement coordinations and nurses and estate lawyers and accountants, really the full range of needs to make sure that the families that we support have one place and one platform that is holistic, that is viewing them as they are wherever they are. And that's the core of the platform.
I was relieved for families and that this is really cost effective for people. And in some cases, I know you had mentioned, or I believe Laura had mentioned, who I had talked with at Empathy, that sometimes that estate will even cover some of those fees or could be reimbursed, so that it kind of just alleviates that another financial piece for families as well.
There's a lot of gaps in terms of information. Most people don't even know they deserve money from Social Security. People don't always bother to look for their veteran administration benefits. And there's a lot of those, especially right now in this current generation. So having that information, knowing what to do, but also what can wait. So you don't have to do everything today. You can't do everything today, but getting that calibration that you're on track, you're moving, you're making progress, but you should also focus on some time on yourself to see how you're feeling in all this, and make sure you have room in this situation for yourself is that balance that we're so focused on.
And families can do it together, right? There's that collaboration where we can all kind of have access to that same portal and platform and have all of us involved and to kind of share that a little bit.
Yeah, tackling tasks together is a very popular capability of the app. It goes all the way from the basic things like, hey, who could be at the house tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the cleaning person, or can you guys take a look at the obituary I wrote with Empathy? I want to publish that tomorrow. But it goes all the way to more fundamental angles like tension and transparency. And once you have the whole family working together, then it's not you, the executor, in misalignment with that East Coast, niece that is not necessarily on the same page right now, or that West Coast uncle who is worried about financials. So now it's about transparency. It's about us as a family winding down the affairs together, supporting each other, tackling tasks as a group, and eventually trying to avoid a lot of the court cases that are fundamentally around just family tension.
Yeah, and miscommunication. Yeah, appreciate that you brought that up. It really does keep everybody on the same page. You can see what's happening. I'm so happy that you focused on this bigger conversation that needs to happen. Some of us are more comfortable than others talking about it, but I'm really hopeful that more and more of us will just embrace that conversation and keep talking about it and keep spreading that awareness. How are you hopeful to change the narrative? What do you see in the future?
Look, people don't want to talk about end of life. It's in our chemistry. It is the essence of avoiding that inescapable truth we talked about. But when you allow a conversation about loss, about pain, about the hurdles that are sometimes unfair, the vendors and parts of the industry that could be even predatory, when you allow that conversation, you're removing the taboo on loss. And you're removing the taboo on death. And at the same time, you're providing information to help families and meet them where they are. And what we do is just help you navigate the logistics of losing a loved one and supporting you emotionally at the same time. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, when we are more open about loss, about this, then we as a society are just more capable of dealing with it. Mm-hmm. And that is the mission of the company. And I believe that when you're truly mission driven, you can't lose. Yeah. Not because there's a huge force of nature that is making sure you win, but because even if someone else comes along the way and do this better than us, then the mission is accomplished. Yeah. Then that's great. We started the company to solve that mission. It's a business, yes, but it's about supporting families. It's about reducing the share of wallet that is spent on end of life, not increasing it. Mm-hmm. And if we are going to change that module, then we are successful in our mission to help families deal with loss.
The heart of the mission never loses. It's always there, and it can grow and impact lives and support families. You've empowered them finally to feel like they're equipped with really important information. So thank you. Thank you for creating it. And
thank you very much. Thank you for giving it a stage and for sharing it with others that need.
Absolutely. I will keep doing that. I've shared it quite a bit and I will continue. So I thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and knowledge today and conversation. I've enjoyed it so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me, and a personal thank you for helping us on our journey to break this taboo topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.